Our initial pick for the Buccaneers, Alabama outside linebacker. He was a defensive end / edge rusher, but he'll play outside linebacker in Tampa Bay, Chris Braswell. Now, he doesn't have the name recognition that a couple of other Alabama Crimson Tide edge rushers had. You had Will Anderson Jr., who was, one of the top picks in this year's draft. And he, he was the Lombardi winner. He was the Lott Impact Trophy winner. He was the Chuck McNarrett winner. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And the other guy, Dallas Turner. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year this year. And Turner is expected to be a top 15 pick this year. So it's no surprise that Braswell was only a part-time player, a role player in his 2022 season because he's playing behind, a top 5 pick and a top 15 pick. But when he did get the chance to play this year, he really came through in spades for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I think he outplayed Dallas Turner in some of those games. I really do. After having 20 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and a forced fumble in 2022, he had 42 tackles, 8 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, and a blocked field goal. And what I like about him is he had an 87.9 pass rush grade from PFF with a very good 18.2% pass rush win rate. And it wasn't just the sacks he put up, 10 quarterback hits and 33 hurries, along with 3 forced fumbles. And when he was around the ball came out. There he is sacking Joe Milton from Tennessee. He had an interception that he turned into a pick 6 in a game. Very good athlete, very good speed to power. And he's even a factor in special teams. He blocked a field goal last year and also blocked a punt against Mercer during his first year at Alabama. So, Matt, this is a player that I think can come in. He's not as heralded as some of these other pass rushers, the Braylon Trice, the kid from LSU, Leo Latu, but and certainly Dallas Turner. But I think this guy with more playing time can really be a good pro because he just had to bide his time at Alabama.
And you know what's interesting is that was, I'm not comparing the two, but that was a little bit of what we had talked about last year at the time with Yaya Diaby, of a player that has all the tools, all the intangibles, but hasn't played as much football and hasn't started at that level that maybe you would want someone a bit more polished. So I really like this pick.
In the second round, one of my absolute favorite prospects, one of Josh Capo's favorite prospects as well. In the second round, we're talking about center Jackson Powers Johnson. This guy reminds me, and look at him. He looks like Ryan Jensen, right? Look at that build. Very similar guy. And I think plays with that tenacity. He's a tone setter up front. He spent most of his time playing guard before last year, where he was a wire-to-wire center, played over 800 snaps at center. And he's a bully. He's a bully in the middle. He's what this team has missed without having Jensen in the lineup. He's not the most agile and athletic guy, but he can get to the second level. He can get out on screen passes. And when he does, he's out for blood. This guy is an absolute mauler in the run game. He's a very good pass protector. He's only given up, whether it was at guard or center, Matt, has only given up 1 quarterback hit, no sacks in his career. And that Oregon offensive line is known for their pass protection. So Tampa Bay wants to throw it. This guy can step in and be a day 1 starter in the second round for the Buccaneers in the third round. Another guy, it's going to be at the Senior Bowl. And honestly, one of my draft crushes, a guy that I've watched ever since the 2022 season when he burst on the scene, Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. And it's no coincidence that a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown just torched the Bucs twice this year in 2 losses to the Lions. Now, I'm not saying that Malachi Corley is a carbon copy of Amon-Ra St. Brown, but at 5'11", 205, he kind of has a body type that's kind of Chris Godwin, kind of Deebo Samuel, kind of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Maybe doesn't have that quick twitch, that start-stop ability that Amon-Ra St. Brown has, but this guy will make you miss. He played mostly in the slot, but he can play outside as well. He caught more screen passes for more yards than any receiver in college football. And while, that's kind of a gimmick play in the NFL, wide receiver screens, it was more of a staple at Western Kentucky. What it allowed him to do was get into the open field, make guys miss, break tackles, slip tackles. He is an incredible competitor, a tackle breaker, and a guy that is very elusive, has really good run after catch ability. As a matter of fact, we have Ben Sinnott in the 4th round for Tampa Bay. Trying to find that next Kelsey, that next Kittle, that next Hawkinson type guy. And I'm not saying Ben Sinnott's that guy, but I think he's in between that realm and K-Dot. And I think he's an upgrade. What you're getting with Sinnott is a real red zone weapon and a guy that can get some of those yards after catch. He is a tackle breaker. He will drag you. He's got a little bit of the playing style of like a poor man's Rob Gronkowski, in that he rarely goes down. He's got really good contact balance to drive through tackle attempts. He averaged 14.4 yards per catch. In a breakout year in 2022, 31 catches for 447 yards, and including 4 touchdowns. This past year, he was K-State's leading receiver, 49 catches, 676 yards, 13.8 yard receiving average, and 6 touchdowns, even though he was more of a marked man this year and drew a lot more attention. But he is a better blocker in line and also on the move as an H-back. He can also play fullback. He can do a lot of things. He's kind of a chess piece. No 5th round pick, but in the 6th round pick, the Buccaneers go with a cornerback, Sebastian Castro, out of Iowa. And Sebastian Castro played opposite Cooper DeJean, and was a really kind of a breakout player for Iowa. Kind of bided his time a little bit in terms of having to wait to see the field. He was a rotational player the year before, so he's a little bit of a one-year wonder. Back in 2022, 33 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, no interceptions, but he did have a sack. But this past season, he was a full-time starter, 67 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, including a pick 6 of Wesley Chapel's own Rocco Becht, who played at Iowa State and was a hell of a freshman quarterback this year. He had 8 pass breakups, a sack, and a forced fumble. So he's around the ball, and when he is, the ball comes out. And he's a tough player, 5'11", 205. Iowa defensive backs like Kayvon Merriweather, Iowa offensive linemen like Tristan Wirfs, Iowa tight ends like pretty much every tight end they put out.
Hawkinson.
Yeah, they're just tough players. They're tough, and that's what this guy brings. We have them waiting until round 7 to go with Sam Hires from Samford. He's got some experience playing against the likes of Auburn and Georgia. Didn't exactly fare too well because, it's Samford. But this is a player that's a bit of a prolific passer, put up some really good numbers over the last couple of years. He's very similar from a size standpoint and kind of a playing standpoint to Baker Mayfield. Good touch, good accuracy, a quick processor in terms of between the ears, and enough mobility to work those bootlegs and play actions. And that's kind of what Hires can do. To end out our mock draft with our other 7th round selection for Tampa Bay, this is one of my absolute most fun sleeper picks, one of my draft crushes, Jaden Sheridan from Monmouth. He is a small school running back, kind of like Chase Edmonds. Yeah. So you have this kid here, Jaden Sheridan. He is lightning in a bottle. It stunned me that the Buccaneers and other teams didn't draft Keaton Mitchell out of East Carolina last year. And, all he did was average 8.4 yards per carry for the Ravens before he hurt his knee. But this kid he had 14 of his 26 touchdowns from 50 yards or more. Obviously, you're not going to have those big wide open alleys to run in the NFL, but his first step is just instant acceleration. Ran for 1,700 yards 2 years ago, 1,400 yards. He's an FCA All-American. And in the 7th round, 5'9", 195, reminds me a lot of Keaton Mitchell, and just a fun player to watch. Needs work on his hands. He's a developmental guy, probably not a kind of guy that's going to come in and be the number 2 guy, but maybe that change of pace guy like a Chase Edmonds, and maybe competes with Sean Tucker to eventually be number 2. But I think he's a good number 3. He's an exciting player that you can kind of scheme for, maybe a little screen pass, but adding more speed to the backfield, never a bad thing.